What's up, y'all? Welcome to a very sober January 7th. We had Ari and I had our recognized day of mourning yesterday for the 1 year anniversary of America's second 9/11, January 6th.
You're talking about when Mike Pence illegally certified the stolen election?
Where we got so close to hanging Mike Pence. It's just, it's sad. Yeah, it's been, you're not online, but it's been unbearable.
I'm not online.
It's been unbearable.
I bet.
It's so bad. It's like you have like half the people saying like it doesn't matter at all, and then the other half of people that are like I think it was Nancy Pelosi, but who's literally comparing it to Pearl Harbor and 9/11.
What I was thinking, which was an interesting comparison, is somebody compared it to the sunflower movement. Was it you?
I was thinking, yeah, I've talked about that before on the podcast, and there's you could also compare it to like Hong Kongers occupying buildings.
Yeah, so, that's what I was thinking when they went into the Legislative Council and vandalized it. And then the person I was talking to was like, well, I mean, that was a non-representative institution. And what I was thinking is, that's the same argument that they would make for Congress.
Yeah, well, the thing is like
illegal, not illegal, but an improper apportionment rules, all that kind of stuff.
So yeah, it's not true representation. Which I think you can make an argument about the United States in that way, but
there are very clear ways through like gerrymandering, I would say.
Well, and also the fact that you look at like public opinion polls versus like the way that Congress people vote, and like you look at Joe Manchin in West Virginia, like he's out there saying like, I don't know how I'd explain this to my voters in West Virginia, talking about Build Back Better. And when you you look at the polls, West Virginia people basically support every provision inside the bill. So
do they support it overall? That would be my question.
I would have to look, but I know provision by provision they certainly do.
Because a lot of people are stupid. They're like, oh yeah, I like everything in there, but I don't like that Build Back Better bill.
That's how it was with Obama. But my meaning being that I think you could make that argument, like you said, also with gerrymandering, things like that. But also,
gerrymandering is clear, and I think also the fact that the Senate, the rules apportioning the Senate are frankly like fucking stupid.
Well, it's certainly an undemocratic institution. Like it just is on its face. That's why it was created. But what I was going to say is that the reason that Hong Kongers occupied the legislature, why Taiwanese occupied the legislature, is because they actually were fighting against something that was really happening. Donald Trump did not win the 2020 election. That's just patently false.
Well, they didn't believe that.
Just because you believe something doesn't mean it's true. Like, just because I believe that, God told me that I should murder all the infidels doesn't mean that I get to.
Yeah, but in an era where I would say the media is less than transparent, there's a pretty opaque information atmosphere in general. And keep in mind, this is a year after like the federal government was proven lying to us about COVID. Anthony Fauci came out on record basically saying that masks are not effective, and then got caught lying. Didn't reverse it, didn't get fired.
Yeah.
Like, the trust in institutions was already low before the government fucked up COVID so badly.
Yeah, even before that, they're historically low.
Yeah, so, like, when you say it didn't happen, like, who are the truth keepers now? That's the question. And these people would say there are no truth keepers.
Well, there are. It's called 4chan. An 8chan.
I don't like that.
That's the thing, is everyone has their enclaves of truth. So everyone gets to be their own little truth and justice committees.
I feel like the federal government has fucked itself in a lot of ways by lying to the American people
100%.
so many times. And COVID has just proven that not only they're incompetent, but they're a bunch of liars who are not interested in protecting the public good. So
yeah,
while I don't agree with what they did, I don't agree with violence, and I don't agree in principle. I think that Biden did win the election. I sympathize with the ability for people to be able to peaceably occupy their legislature.
That's another,
should they choose to.
That's another difference that should be drawn between what Hong Kongers. Hong Kongers technically broke down the doors, but they didn't commit violence against any people, and neither did the Sunflower Movement when they occupied the legislature. They were actually the ones that got beaten up. So it's completely different. Like,
when you say, well, first of all, both of those movements consisted of dozens, if not the Sunflower Movement was dozens. I think the Hong Kong protest, that was hundreds, if not thousands of people. So even if 2 or 3 had beaten up a police officer, that would not have delegitimized it. As far as the Capitol Hill riot protests, whatever you want to call them, those were probably thousands, if not tens of thousands of people. And a lot of them were basically spurred on by police officers. So
and Trump.
And Trump.
Yeah, and allowed, like you said, by police officers into the Capitol.
So the claims of violence, well, I'm completely against violence, obviously. I think that a lot of the claims of violence were that, they would have, killed Mike Pence and hung him in the middle of... I think those claims are a little bit overwrought, to say the least.
I wonder.
I wonder too.
I think there's certain members of the crowds that probably would have. But
I think we're both talking about false conditionals that didn't happen. So
we're
just wildly speculating.
It certainly didn't. There was basically, in terms of like actual killing of other people, there was one on each side. There was the lady that got shot in the face for breaking through that door, and then they killed a cop. So, and then there was a bunch of fatalities from people that
a lot of heart attacks.
Got really excited and tased themselves in the balls and then fucking had a heart attack.
I would say probably the amount of people who were shot in DC by police that day is not even close to that death count. But I'm just ballparking. Realistically, there should have been no violence here. It was probably uncalled for. I don't think that the election was stolen, but I can sympathize with their motive to make their voices heard in that circumstance.
Yeah, and I think kind of like you were alluding to earlier, I think it's definitely that tactic of occupying governmental buildings is definitely one that I support.
Yes, I think it's kind of been blown up a bit.
Oh, certainly. I mean, the comparisons to 9/11 and stuff just make me laugh because Pearl Harbor. It's just so ridiculous, such a stretch. And then Nancy Pelosi has Lin-Manuel Miranda and his goon squad in to sing a song today on January 6th, or I guess yesterday now. It's just this is so performative. It's just like the fucking
guy who invented the Miranda rights.
That's right. He's a cop. It's
I think Miranda was a guy who got arrested.
Actually. It was. It definitely was. Yeah, definitely was. It's just so performative. It's like the kente cloth shit. Yeah. It's just you're willing to make these statements, but you're literally not willing to lift a finger to actually make Americans' lives better. There was all that stuff that came out recently of her making all these trades. Speaking specifically of Pelosi, she just made a couple $1 million.
Oh, you mean stock trades?
Yeah. She's
a slime ball.
She's a slime ball. And the funny thing is they had I told you about this before. I don't remember if I said it on pod. There was just a Twitter account that would literally, all it did was retweet her trades, and it got banned. Now, I don't know the exact reason that they gave for shutting it down.
Jack Dorsey's in her pocket?
Well, Jack Dorsey doesn't work for Twitter anymore, Ari. He retired.
That doesn't mean he's not still running it behind the scenes. I don't know the situation.
I'm just kidding. I don't. I mean, it's a shithole either way. Whether he's in there or not, it's been set up in the way it's set up to allow. It's the same with most institutions in the United States and around the world, where powerful people are given large leeway, long leashes, and average working class citizens are snatched off the platform at an instant's notice for things that elites do every day.
Like the members of Congress, and you can see. Their reaction to this. The most important lives in America are not Americans' lives. They're the lives of the members of Congress.
Well, those are Americans, but they're rich elite Americans.
They're not American. Aren't they immune to criminal prosecution or something ridiculous like that?
When they're in the process of their duty. That's why
they're literally above the law.
Yeah, there have been instances where because if they're going to attend a section of Congress, they can literally get in a drunk driving accident and murder someone and not go to jail. It's fucked, man. It's so messed up. Yeah, they're people don't realize that they're literally above the law. Not to mention the fact that we have a 2-tier justice system in America anyway, where if you have a shitload of money, you get off when you commit any sort of act.
Well, that fraud lady didn't. But I guess a lot of her money was probably seized.
It's the same thing. This is the thing that true hustlers know, is that when you scam people, you scam a bunch of poor people. You don't scam rich people, because that's what she did. Just like the whole Enron scandal. When you scam rich people, you will go to fucking jail. But if you scam poor people, it doesn't matter. You will walk every time, especially if you're rich and powerful. But if you're a poor person scamming other poor people, it's kind of up in the air. You'll probably go to jail because they like locking poor people up, because it's the new version of slavery. That's how they continue their free work program.
Those are slightly radical oversimplifications.
Slight simplifications, but I mean, that's how places like Walmart and Amazon maintain $1 a day wages. They
prisoners.
Yeah, There are people right now, currently in the United States, that work for places like Amazon and Walmart that work for $1 a day. Literally, like Chinese poverty level wages. They do things like they'll like make little trinkets, or they'll like do call centers, and they make the equivalent of like $1 a day, and they work for these giant corporations.
Where's the rest of that money going?
Into Amazon's pocket.
Minimum wage.
It doesn't matter. You're a prisoner. They don't have to pay you shit.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
I mean, the 13th Amendment allows slavery. You're not allowed to basically be enslaved unless you're in prison. If you're in prison, then it's okay. You're allowed to be like forced to work and forced to essentially be a slave, which you can look at. They've been having, obviously, because of climate change, a ton of forest fires in California. They just changed this recently, fucking finally. But before, all these prisoners were working as firefighters, putting their fucking lives on the line, making, again, like $1 a day. And when they got out, they were barred from being firefighters. So they learned a skill, like which rarely happens inside of prison, and then they weren't allowed to use that skill.
Well,
about that. That's bullshit, man. You're supposed to be
firefighting is not like
you're supposed to be fucking reformed, man. And this is why the recidivism rates are so high in the United States, is because you lock people up for so long, dehumanize them, and then when they get out, they have literally no opportunities because you have to check a box that says you're a fucking criminal for the rest of your life.
I agree that there should be a term on that, but it should also be based on what crime you've committed. And
absolutely. But this was for like I believe it's any federal crime. So you could get caught with a dime bag of weed like 2 or 3 times, and then you're just fucked for the rest of your life. And no wonder people are fucking keep committing crimes. Like if the choice for me is, if I have like 2 kids and I get out of prison and I have a fucking federal crime, and my options are like work at McDonald's for minimum wage and my kids starve, or
go back to prison and just abandon your family.
Maybe, but the idea is that you don't get caught. I mean,
yeah, and that worked so well the last time.
Well, maybe these people maybe aren't thinking rationally because they've been in a fucking cage half their life. But also, like, yeah, maybe you think you have a better way of doing it this time, or you're going to try to do something else. Like, I don't know.
I have a lot of friends who went to prison, which is not a nice thing to say. It's not like a thing that I'm proud of, but I would say that the system did not help them, but the system, there was something broken in them.
Right, but
it wasn't society's fault. The reason they ended up prison was because they themselves were disturbed. Psychologically disturbed. That
might be true, but I don't think everyone that goes to prison is psychologically disturbed.
Everyone that I know, and I would say
that's fine. That's anecdotal.
Close friends.
Yeah, I know. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm just saying I know people who weren't disturbed that went to prison for a long time and came out worse. And I know people that went to prison and came out similar and decided to change their life because of it. So, I mean, there's different stories for everything.
I know. I'm saying that it's not like systematic. It's not like trapping them in a cycle. I would say the reason that they went to prison, I agree that it should be more rehabilitative for sure. But I would say that typically, like, the reason that they went to prison in the first place was not societal, it wasn't systematic. It was a deep-seated personal issue, and it never got resolved.
I would say that's partially society's fault. We should be taking care of these people. We should have things like free, like Medicare for all, where you get mental health care. Now, there are going to be people who slip through the cracks,
but none of these people. Some people are just like, if you look at the criminology textbooks, they just call it like socially deviant. There's something wrong with their psyche where they cannot basically empathize properly with other people, and therefore, because of their crimes or because of their nature, they don't feel guilt. They don't have that impulse not to do something that will hurt someone else.
Totally. No, there are definitely those people, and that's why I can't quite bring myself to be a prison abolitionist. But I also think, one, it's very surprising that you have so many psychopathic friends. But
I had a lot growing up. I don't know why.
I think some of that, though, is...
I think I've told you some stories.
Yeah, you've told me some crazy stories. I think some of that is a little bit of both. Because I generally fall somewhere in the middle with the nature versus nurture argument. So I don't know how much of that is learned behavior and how much of it is like inherently like you have some synapses misfiring in your brain or something.
No, I'm not saying that it can't be solved, but I'm saying like even Medicare for all wouldn't solve that. Though that thing would require those people to have basically had a totally different childhood. There's nothing else. There's nothing that could save them societally.
That also goes towards poverty alleviation.
But they weren't poor. The ones that I'm talking about were all richer than me. Every single one of them.
Well, yeah.
It was because their parents were fucked up. That's
Yeah.
eugenics more than anything else.
I don't think that's eugenics.
No, I'm saying like those there were parents who like basically should not have had kids, not because they were poor, but because they weren't psychologically prepared to give them the nurturing they needed more than anything. It wasn't a poverty issue for any of these people.
I think that also comes into like we also need to improve our like education system. It's obviously super multifaceted.
Dropped out of school. Every single one of them.
For what reason? That's the question. No, I mean, I meant education for like the parents.
Oh,
we should have like better education for like expecting parents, and also more resources to help them raise their kids. But I do agree with you. There are a certain amount of people that are just fucked. Like they're just fucked. But that's why we should have a huge safety net and take care of them. And if they need to spend the rest of their life in a facility or whatever their situation is, we should have that prepared for them. But what America does is either throw them in prison or let them like go on the street and then like threaten people, like when they get like a weird drug problem and then like start attacking people on the subway or something. We just kind of wash our hands of it until there's. I mean, I don't have a huge problem with panhandling, but I do think that it's absurd that there are homeless people in the United States. I don't know. It's obviously super multifaceted, and
we can have a long discussion about homelessness.
I don't know how we got on this topic either. we're good at Mandarin.
But we can talk about America first if you want. I got a couple.
Go.
Which is that, well, America. I mean, if anyone doesn't know that America is now over 1 million cases a day of COVID, they've utterly failed. And I think it's totally ironic that all of the American media is now criticizing. I've seen so much lately criticizing China for their zero COVID policy, saying like, why don't they just join the rest of the world and just learn to live with COVID?
Yeah, why wouldn't you just give up like us? Why wouldn't you just totally throw your hands up in the air and let a bunch of children die?
Yeah, they're just, I mean, slitting their wrists and just laying down in the bathtub, basically being like, we've given up. But realistically, a country that's fucked it up so bad, how do they have the gall to like lecture other countries?
American exceptionalism, man. Americans are supremely fucking ignorant.
We're doing worse than literally any other country in the entire world, and yet we have the right to lecture you about your stupid policy.
I was looking at because I see these people who like in some cases I think are like ostensibly like decent journalists or used to be before COVID like rotted their fucking brains, but like they're just talking about how like it's
vaccines.
Well, like people who are like quote unquote leftist or like on the progressive side of things, they're like making children wear masks and like taking them out of school right now is child abuse. And it's like, no, what child abuse is forcing a child to go to school who might have a pre-existing condition, shoving them in there forcing them not to wear a mask because you think it's going to fuck with their facial recognition or something. I'm not sure. Again, every state is different. It's super complicated. But then taking that disease home and killing both their parents. And now they're fucking, like, they don't have any parents. I was looking at the statistic. This was back in May of last year. Already at that time, when it wasn't even that bad, we didn't have fucking Delta at that time. There was 1.5 million parents around the world that had already died. And I'm sure the majority of that was in the United States. Because it's all estimates, because we don't exactly know. So there's just fucking COVID babies that just don't have parents anymore. Orphans. Yeah, exactly. It's fucking horrific, man. So like, fuck off with that shit. Miss me with that. Also, I love how teachers like always get thrown under the bus. Same with nurses. Like people just think that these people are there to serve you. It's like, no, they're human beings as well, and they have a right to fucking. A lot of times
with public employees in general, that's just like the stereotype.
Well,
like,
nurses aren't. Salaries. Well, nurses aren't public employees, but the same.
Public hospitals are
the same. Well, we don't. I mean. Kind of. But even still, like, I hate when I see, like, teachers protesting and then people are like, oh, like, you just don't care about the kids. It's like, actually, the reason they're protesting is because the fucking government doesn't give them any money, so they have to buy all their own school supplies.
No, I agree with you. They're underpaid and they're abused. But I'm just giving you this.
No, I know what you're saying. No, people think that. But just because you pay someone's salary doesn't mean they're your slave, just like a boss. Just because they pay my salary doesn't mean they get to dictate everything about my life.
No,
and the fact that I should
right to shoot you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, I'm sorry. You were 9 minutes late to work today. Up against the wall, peasant.
You were skateboarding in my direction.
Yeah, meet my AR-15. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's disgusting, but I mean, like I said, I think America has given up. So I honestly hope.
I think the whole world is.
There was a story out of Chicago that basically the teachers just walked out, and
I was gonna mention that, but I saw you mention that on Wednesday. Oh,
yeah,
not that they walked out. The teachers union basically said that they're gonna shut down the schools.
They successfully in a couple places, but Chicago was the one I saw most recently. Got distance learning basically because they were like, we won't come to school. Like, this is stupid.
It's totally stupid.
I feel bad for my mom, whose school district still refuses to enforce masks. Which, here's another thing, is like, this shows me that, like, I mean, Americans kind of have always been a little bit like anti-education, but it shows me that this is not about education. It's about a daycare service.
That's exactly right.
Which is another thing that the state should be providing, which Build Back Better was supposed to provide for, but again, thanks President Joe Manchin. But yeah, that's all it really boils down to. And if they want to do that, I say just, like, you know, send the kids to school and just put them in a room with a CCTV camera and a security guard can watch over them like a prison, because that's what we have anyway, is a school to prison pipeline. So it's even more streamlined now.
I disagree with that oversimplification, but
I'm only doing oversimplifications today. I saw an article saying that we should treat beef like coal.
What do you mean?
Basically, like,
carbon tax?
Yeah, put carbon taxes on it. Because like, if you compare beef to tofu, and even pork, honestly, but beef to tofu, let's use that because that works better for my argument, which is that you should go vegan, or at least vegetarian. Is that it's like produces 31 times more carbon dioxide per calorie than tofu.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers of, like, water and
not to mention methane.
Yeah,
and methane's one of the worst greenhouse gases. It's similar it's actually less of a. Okay, so if you compare hydropower to coal, that's only a 24 times difference. So this gives you some idea of the scale. Now, I don't know about the total numbers on both of those outputs, but just to give you, like, a scaling, it's kind of ridiculous.
You say hydropower?
Mm-hmm.
Why would hydropower produce carbon emissions?
Well, I mean, I assume, like, setting it up, you know, like building the installations and all that stuff. Yeah, exactly, and maintenance. But yeah. Anyway, that was good. And then there was one other, like, kind of animal rights adjacent stories that I'll just throw in here, is that Italy voted to ban fur farming, and they're going to shut down all their mink farms.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I mean, it was fucked at the beginning of COVID. You saw, like, all these, like, fur farms just culling, like, thousands and thousands, if not tens, hundreds of thousands of these animals. It's sickening to watch.
Well, now it's just going to move to China, like all the other lawless shit, or North Korea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where else are you going to go for your pangolin dick pills?
Lol.
Your little TCM, so you can drink some, like, rhino horn ground into little boys' pee.
Gross.
That's like legit TCM, man. I don't like it either.
Djokovic, that tennis player. Did you hear about what's happening with that?
Oh yeah, he got kicked out of Australia, right?
Yeah, basically he landed in Australia, and I think he had, like, a provisional visa, and they're just like, no, and then they just sent him to get deported.
Yeah, he's just like,
which is crazy because he's, like, one of the number one tennis players in the world.
Man, tennis has been pretty fucking based lately, with the Women's Tennis Association pulling out of China because of the Peng Shuai stuff, and then this, like, good, like.
Well, you know the circumstances what happened here, right?
What? That he got, like, I know he got, like, a vaccine exemption or something.
Yeah, and they're like, no, this isn't good enough. They deported him.
What is his reasoning behind that? I didn't see.
He's just anti-vax. I think he just got.
That's what I know. He's critical of vaccines.
I don't like that word. He's skeptical.
Vaccine
about the
hesitant.
Vaccines.
Vaccine hesitant is the nicer word that people usually bandy about. I mean, here's what I think is, like, I think if you don't want to get the vaccine, as long as you wear your mask and you're careful and you test, I think that's an acceptable position. If you have realistic, like, and people and liberal fucking scolds that want to yell at me, like, how do you feel about the fact that you're scolding, you know, like 30% of black people in the United States? Huh? How does that make you feel, libtards? But anyway, I think, again, it's probably fine as long as you're doing, like, a lot of testing and stuff. But also, like, if you're doing something like that's, like, hugely unimportant to the world, it's entertainment, then you also have to deal with the consequences, and you don't get to bitch about it.
I don't feel bad for it. I just think
I don't either.
Interesting case. I think Australia, I mean, it's a sovereign country. They have the right to do whatever they want. I think that this Personally, I think it's quite stupid because I think, especially with the Omicron strain, the vaccines have proven, regardless of what you want to say, the claims you want to make, that based on literally almost no clinical evidence whatsoever, that it can still protect you against hospitalization or severe infection, which we don't have that data yet.
We just don't know. Yeah.
Omicron is 5 weeks old.
Yeah.
It's basically been proven 100% through the number of people that have gotten infected is that it doesn't help at all with the spread of it. So to say that because you're vaccinated, you're less likely to spread it it's just a patent falsehood. So the notion that him getting vaccinated would prevent him from bringing it into Australia is...
Yeah, everyone should be testing anyway and quarantining.
Yeah, exactly. So this is just kind of a stupid move. And it just makes them look petty. But I guess Australia is very strict about their, like, in general, about things coming in and out of their country because they consider themselves a little precious island, despite the fact that they destroy their environment with mining.
We're a prison colony.
I love Australia, but their immigration and their border controls are the strictest I've ever seen in the world. I've never been questioned so many times at borders as I have in Australia.
It's interesting that they let so many like foreign workers in though. Like so many Taiwanese people go there to work. Working holiday, yeah. Oh, interesting. I've never been there, but I would like to go. It looks like a beautiful country. Lots of scary animals though.
I don't think there's anything that will kill you really.
Are you kidding me? Like all the snakes and spiders?
Yeah, but how often do you actually encounter those? I've been to Australia 3 times. I've gone camping twice there, and I have the only thing that I've ever encountered. I mean, I've seen all the like famous wildlife. I've never seen a snake, and I've never seen a giant spider.
Did you see a platypus?
I did not see a platypus.
I know the dingoes ate your shoes.
Yeah, the dingoes ate my shoes. I saw koalas. I saw kangaroos. I saw alligators, not in the wild, and I saw what's that a quokka.
Quokka. I don't know. I think it's
I've never seen snakes or spiders.
Really interesting country. But all I'm saying is they have a lot of animals that will kill you if you catch yourself in the wrong. Did you go out?
But they have snakes and spiders everywhere that will kill you. It's not like...
Yeah, that's true. But like you think about Taiwan, there's not that many venomous... There's only 2 kinds of venomous spiders and a few kinds of venomous snakes. And I've only seen 1 snake in the 5 years that I've been here. 6 years I've been here.
Predatory animals. And
oh, yeah. That's fair. That's fair, yeah.
The only thing they have is in the north, which is like alligators, crocodiles, whatever they are.
Dingoes. And the kangaroos are pretty... They're not predatory, but they're pretty nasty little bastards.
They're nasty, but they kind of avoid people, it seems like.
That's fair. I mean, I've just seen enough videos where they're like attacking dogs or like kicking humans.
I think I've sent you that video a long time ago.
I saw...
He's got that dog in the headlock and the guy socks him in the head.
He just... I like the one... There's one where a guy comes down in a parachute and the kangaroo like hops up to him and tries to fight him and he just like socks it too. Which I feel bad for the kangaroo, but like, you know, fuck around and find out. You can't be fighting people.
People eat kangaroos there. They don't like them very much.
I think it's... From what conversations I've had with Australians is it's similar to like where I live in deer. Yeah. It's just like you hit them in your car, they're dangerous, they're like kind of annoying.
You live in the country,
they're like
a lot of Australians do.
Yeah, they're like giant rodents basically.
The urbanites I think are a little bit more
well, yeah, they're
soft.
Well, they're also like kind of like a national symbol, so
they are, yeah. They definitely are.
Just like turkeys in America.
Which Americans also love to eat.
It's not a national symbol, but I'm just kidding.
It's a national bird.
Yeah. How sick would it be if that was our national bird instead of the eagle?
I don't think we have a national bird, do we?
Yeah, the bald eagle, bro.
Is it our national bird or is it just on the money?
It's definitely our national bird. And also, it's funny because you know the classic like eagle screech. I'll insert it here. That is not a bald eagle. A bald eagle actually sounds like it sounds really weak and weird. And I'll insert that here.
Kind of cute.
It just sounds like a bird, but it doesn't sound like menacing like you think of that like powerful like that like powerful like eagle screech.
That's true.
Yeah, think about if you just like saw like a military commercial like join the Army National Guard, we'll give you an M60 and you can go out there and kill some goddamn terrorists. Like, it wouldn't be as powerful, right?
Probably not.
Same thing if it was like a turkey. Like you're just like, one man stands alone against the Afghan terrorists. He is a Marine. You can be a Marine. It wouldn't hit the same, you know?
I guess.
No need to guess.
I do guess.
Bitch, you guessed it.
Did you hear what's happening in Sudan?
I don't think so.
The prime minister resigned again after they had a coup a couple months ago, and then they took him out of power, and then people started protesting. I'm sure you remember the protest.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it.
Yeah.
And
I remember the calling for him to resign, but I didn't hear that he actually did.
well, they put him he's a civilian technocrat anyway.
Mm.
So the military put him back in, and then people are like, well, the military is still in charge. We want real elections and real democracy. And then he ended up resigning again here.
Dang.
Yeah, it's gonna get ugly, and people are protesting again. And that is one country where I want to talk about Kazakhstan in a minute. That is a country where they have no qualms about using force against protesters. They will just go out there with those truck-mounted machine guns and start firing into the crowds.
Yeah.
That's a dark country with some serious problems. And what I heard is that the United States is basically the only country in the world that's saying anything. That's get your democracy back on track, boys. But meanwhile, basically the UAE, primarily Dubai, and then Egypt are giving them weapons and stuff like that. So
what? Just to sell weapons? Is there some other
I think
artillery?
it's influence peddling.
Okay.
I mean, Egypt is their neighbor to the their neighbor to the north, because now they have Egypt and then Sudan, and then South Sudan is a separate country.
Right.
So yeah, they're their neighbor to the north. So they definitely want to it's a little bit of puppetism, I would say.
I mean, that makes sense. That's kind of what happens all the time, right?
I guess so. It's dark, and I hope they can resolve it. But I think the world is in such a wreck state right now that
even you think about their neighbor to the east, which is Ethiopia. They're also dealing with basically a coup situation as well.
It was interesting. I was just reading a book, and they're talking about how technically if all of these things are thought to cause democracy, political development and connecting people and globalization and all these things, if democratization is the end path for all of these processes, then the world should be tending towards democracy. And then you just look at, here we are in 2022, and it's just the entire world is basically in a state of regression right now into authoritarianism, and even in democracies into a state of basically chaos where people have lost complete faith in the system because the government doesn't at all work towards the interest of its people. It's just kind of...
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that we think about stuff is because that's what's happened, especially as Americans. That's what's happened in our recent past, but there's nothing that...
the January 6th reference. I didn't mean that. I meant in Asia and Africa, Europe. I mean, everywhere you look, it's kind of a rollback. I mean, the decline of democracy, the decline of liberalism in general.
And I would say in a lot of places.
I can't think of a place where
Taiwan.
Even in Taiwan, the fact that this is, I think, the worst turnout referendum they've had in Taiwanese history. That's not a good sign for their democracy.
I don't know if that's a bad sign for democracy or if it's just the fact that they put up stuff that no one cares about, and it's also the middle of a pandemic. But I don't know if I would say that. I don't know if it's soon enough to say it's a bad sign for their democracy. I mean, I agree with you. The overall worldwide trends is tending that way. But I also think that there's, what I was going to say is that people think that we think, oh, it's always progressing towards democracy and everything's getting better. And I think in a lot of terms, the world is getting better. There's generally less violence and murder and horrible things going on, and people are more informed and educated.
Huge step back.
Well, I mean, we're in pretty unprecedented times for the past 100 years. But my point being is that to view it as it's that's just the way it goes as we become more democratic. That's ahistorical. It doesn't always go forward. A lot of times we just regress. So people have to hold the systems accountable.
I don't think, I mean, you can accept that there's some forward and backward movement without pointing out that right now a lot of the frail democracies and a lot of these collapsing systems don't have the trajectory doesn't look good for the future either. You look at
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
Soviet Union. I can't think of a single country right now in the former Soviet Union that I think is, well,
I would say the Baltic states. Yeah,
okay, fine. Other than the Baltic states, other than the ones who have joined the EU, I can't think of any who are in good shape, I would say. Uzbekistan, I heard some good things about recently. I don't remember what the details were.
Okay.
Basically, everything else is in complete tragedy. And that's just one of a dozen regions in the world that you can basically do the same thing.
For sure, for sure.
Asia, same thing. Thailand, Myanmar, South Korea now trying to make a peace agreement with their now nuclear armed North neighbor in exchange for absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah, I don't know that's like the collapse of democracy though. I mean, they've had problems with their presidents and stuff recently.
Oh
but
yeah. I mean, that's another one. That's that is not the collapse of democracy. The idea is that moves them towards a kind of unification, because that's the ultimate goal for both the North and the South.
Right, but I don't.
A system where the North is basically not budging at all, and the South is making all the concessions.
For sure, but I don't think that the South is like going to take the knee and let Kim Jong-un take over. So
signing a peace agreement and kicking out the Americans would be a pretty big step towards that, and that's what they're considering right now.
Yeah, I mean, what is North Korea going to do? An invasion? I mean, they could try, but they would get wiped off the map.
Who? If the Americans are out, the Americans are out.
I mean, yeah, but like this, well, the South. I mean, the South Koreans are not just going to like let them waltz in. Now
the Chinese army backs the North and has for 70 years.
If China invades South Korea, then we're talking about something completely different there.
I don't think so. I think if they kick the U.S. out, I don't think anyone would give two shits anymore. I think if they did sign that, and the contingency for that, and the qualification was that the United States troops had to leave, I think that would be the end of other countries being willing to back South Korea.
I'm not sure about that.
70 fucking years backing them up. If they kicked us out, no other country would come to their assistance.
I don't know if I agree with that, because maybe Japan.
Japan hates South Korea.
They hate them, but they also know that, like, in terms of regional stability, they're pretty key.
So you're saying Japan would take on China and North Korea?
I'm not saying they would. I'm saying that they might. And also, I don't
stabbed their.
I also don't think that China is going to invade South Korea.
I don't think China will either, but the North Koreans are unstable, which
for sure. No, that I don't disagree with.
That's why the Korean War happened. The Chinese didn't want to invade then either. They just got dragged into it.
And no, I mean I agree with. I'm just saying I don't think China is going to invade South Korea, even if the United States is pulled out.
I'm not saying China is going to. I'm saying North Korea intends to at some point.
Right, but if North Korea again itself invades, they're not going to do anything to South Korea unless they nuke it. Like they could shell it. And again, South Korea is going to wipe them off the map.
I don't know.
That's my contention. I agree with your original point, is that if they do this like peace agreement and they give a bunch of concessions and get none from the northern side, I think that's kind of stupid.
I mean, that's been the history of at least the U.S. and North Korean relations for the past 50 years, is that we keep giving them concessions, giving them sanctions reliefs, and then they basically just keep developing nukes that they're going to use against us.
I don't know if they're going to use them against us.
I mean, they say they're going to use.
They say them. I mean, there's a big difference between rhetoric and actual action. I think
they don't have any other enemies besides Japan.
I think I think that they just want I think a lot of it is bluster, because they just want to be left alone. I mean, obviously, Un is like a psychopath. Like, if he could take over the world, he would. But I think even someone as crazy as him knows he's not doing shit. I think if he fucking nukes someone, that country is gone, dude.
It's not about nuking other countries. Their ultimate goal is the unification of the Korean Peninsula. And I think thinking beyond that is like.
Well, I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think that the South Koreans would never accept that. There would be riots in the street. They would burn Seoul to the ground before they let North Korea take over their country. I think that's a little bit absurd.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they're even talking about having a peace agreement.
I think I think having talks is fine. Yeah, if you sign a peace agreement where one side gives everything and the other side basically just gets a bunch of free shit, that's stupid.
Anyway, this is a massive digression.
It's fucking dumb. Yeah. Okay. Anyway,
I'm just saying every region has these examples that are just kind of like
ugly
little spits in the face of the progression of democracy.
For sure. But that's why hopefully people are like doing stuff. But unfortunately, I think part of it is also that people are so wrapped up in their little online TikTok world, and also because governments just don't give them anything. But I think part of that is you have to like go out and demand things from your government, like in Kazakhstan. Like the people are actually out in the street like saying like, listen, motherfuckers. And then you have a bunch of fucking online tankies being like, this is a color revolution. I'm sipping my, $10 latte.
What does that even mean?
It's like they're basically saying that it's like a CIA op.
Meanwhile, they're using the CIA ops site.
yeah, exactly.
I'm permanently broadcasting nonstop my information to the intelligence agencies of 10 different countries as well as Mark Zuckerberg. Now let me keep complaining about the intelligence services that I willfully give all my information to.
Well, tankies don't use Facebook. All right, tankies use Twitter, of course. Maybe Instagram, but yeah.
Mark Zuckerberg controls Twitter too. Mark Zuckerberg is not real.
Well, it's all becoming the metaverse anyway. He's jacked into the metaverse, like Neo.
Well, I mean, he is the metaverse.
I am the metaverse.
What's interesting is that, yeah, I think for the first couple days in Kazakhstan, they weren't doing anything. If you looked at the videos, like, the people were like, yeah, the police are on our side. And you just saw these thousands of people and the police are just standing there, like, watching it happen.
There were videos of, like, police, like, kind of, like, joining into the protest, but
and now
never trust a cop.
I always think CIS. CIS is like that's like security. It's CSTO.
Mm-hmm,
CSTO troops, which are probably like, yeah.
Well, the president
uniformed Russians.
The government authorized like opening fire on protesters.
Well, the government is obviously corrupt, and that's where they're approaching. I figured that this is what I was thinking before that happened. I was like, this is not going to be tolerated because you have almost like a Hosni Mubarak situation, a government that looks like it doesn't have the will to use all the force that's required to put down the dissent, and it might therefore undergo a democratic transition. And
I hope so.
Well, what I was thinking is Kazakhstan is nestled in between Russia and China, and I don't think any of those countries would tolerate a country the size of Kazakhstan basically showing to the world, here's another Arab Spring, basically, like an authoritarian state where the people just took to the streets, the police stood down, and suddenly they got like democratic progress. Like, that doesn't look good for either of those two countries. So one of them is going to basically put their foot down and say to the leader of that country, either you step in or we're going to off you and do it for you.
Possible.
I think that's what took place here, because for the first couple of days it looked like he wasn't forceful enough. He didn't authorize like the use. Maybe the police were actually standing down, but I mean, with most authoritarian states like that, they have the capacity to basically put their foot down if they want. Sure. And he demonstrated. It looked like he didn't have the will to do so.
I think also sometimes there's a period where they're like kind of trying to feel out the protest, where they're like, is this going to continue, or they're going to get this out of their system type thing.
Yeah, maybe you might be right about that, but from the perspective of the neighboring states, I feel.
No, for sure. That I definitely agree with, and I do wonder
that the troops that went in were fucking Russian troops. I mean, CSTO is like basically headed by Russia,
which is kind of funny because they're talking about this like CIA-backed color revolution, and it's actually it's literally fucking Russian troops going into Kazakhstan. Like, talk about some irony. Anyway, but yeah,
reliving the Soviet fucking Union.
Dude, there's crazy videos coming out of there. I haven't been following it super close, but I like check some stuff out every once in a while. There was a video today of these dudes on horseback riding into the protest, like these protesters, like going to clash with the police. They're like riding horses down the street. Jeez. It was crazy, dude.
Police or soldiers? Because that's the worry.
No, they were civilians.
I'm saying, were they clashing with police or clashing with
soldiers? They were like riding to the protest. So there was no actual clash on camera, but because
I think the police, it seems like the police are not willing to use force. I think it's the Russian soldiers who will be glad to kill as many protesters as possible.
The thing is if the civilians remain moderately peaceful and Russian troops just start gunning people down on the street, like that's how you get like actual revolution and like actual change. It's like when things start peaceful. I mean, I understand people's like want to like be violent and like like go to battle in the streets, but like it's really hard for the world as a whole, speaking like broadly, to watch people just get massacred.
I would say that if there's a time to massacre civilians, this is the time to fucking do it. Where there's like an act of genocide on one of their doorsteps, Russia basically getting ready to invade a sovereign country on another doorstep, a few hundred miles away in Myanmar, literally a civil war, which is the government against its own civilians. There's like never a better time when the rest of the world just be like, throw their hands up and say, let's learn to live with COVID.
Yeah, they're distracted because they're worried about getting people their third or fourth shot. Shit.
You're going to get us banned off
I'll beep it. I'm just joking, obviously. I just like to make that joke, but no one will get the joke now. If you DM me, I'll tell you the joke on private, like, encrypted app.
As long as it can't be typed in.
We'll see how to do it.
I feel like, yeah, it's just not a great time because you can get away with a lot right now. You can get away with
for sure. People are. Well, I think the other thing is, one, I mean, I don't know how much regular citizens have that can do about almost anything, but, like, just like the regular citizens, governments are also, like, in this, like, schizophrenic state where they're just focused on so many things at once, where they're just like, oh, well,
I mean,
like...
they wouldn't have to if they just closed their
No,
borders.
totally. It's their own fault. They, like, totally deserve this, but it's obviously to their own peril and to the detriment of people around the world. And it sucks to the detriment of not only people's lives but also to democracy in general, kind of like you mentioned earlier. All right, two quick things. One is that Image Comics unionized, which is basically a first for the comics industry, so that's fucking sick. I'm happy for them. Image Comics has a lot of good stuff. And then the other thing is that I saw that Yin Qingbiao, the big gangster boy in Taichung, is he's like in the hospital, so his son can get some sympathy, allegedly.
Yeah, I saw you sent that, but I didn't look at the details.
We have to be careful though.
Why is he in the hospital?
I didn't see. I haven't been following. I like right before we came on, I saw that he was in the hospital, and
I'm not gonna tell it. Yeah, I just keep my mouth shut.
You have to be careful about making fun of him because he'll turn you into dumplings, dude. So.
Well, anyone in the hospital probably should lay off them until they get out.
Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, there was people speculating online that like he's basically just doing it for like a sympathy vote for his son.
What is that election?
It's coming up. I also like that his son's name is Wide.
He's pretty wide.
Yin Kwang Hung. Yeah. He's quite wide. Yeah, that's probably good enough. Probably good enough for today. We covered a lot of ground. But
good night, guys.
Y'all, I love you. We will obviously talk to you soon. Make sure to go to the website, and if you see any interesting advertisements after you disable your ad blocker, make sure to click on those. And go to the Patreon if you got a little extra dollars to throw our way. That's patreon.com/FreeChinaPost. And also just spread the word via word of mouth. We love you. We'll talk to you soon. FCP 最大